Silindelo, we haven't often seen the SANDF coming out and having these media briefings, but they are doing it more often, you were telling me off air, and it's an important exercise.
Yes, they've deemed it necessary to have the General really come and report back to the public and be accountable as in terms of the Constitution, as to the state of the military, how it's doing, what their operations are, and where they are at this moment. Now, I think it was also quite important for the department to actually hold this kind of specific briefing following several media reports that we've been seeing, as they say, being peddled in the media, unsubstantiated reports about averted coups and military arms being sent to Cuba, etc. So they were really trying to set the record straight on a number of those issues, and I think the General definitely did that. Now, with regards to this so-called averted coup, we saw reports about a week ago, specifically from the City Press, about how President Cyril Ramaphosa was warned that he needs to fix his issues with the former President Jacob Zuma, because there was a likelihood that Umkhonto weSizwe veterans were planning a coup, and they were planning to basically overthrow him as the leader of the country, and they weren't going to accept him. So according to the General, these are unsubstantiated. Nobody really quoted in these articles as to who this information is coming from. It's always just sources from inside the military or inside the eNCA department. And so the General was saying, Shoke, that the allegiance of the military is to the Republic and to the Constitution, and the Constitution alone.
So in terms of the issue of deploying the army in Cape Town, the General saying that that is not what the army does,
yes.
But we have to be clear that the President is the one to
yes.
deploy the army. Is the General saying that he's now taken a decision that that will not happen in the Western Cape?
No, that's not what he said. What he said was that, listen, as the army, we are ordered, we are deployed, we don't deploy ourselves. And so in this instance, until an order comes from the presidency, maybe from the police, whatever it is, it cannot be that they're just going to pack up and go to the Western Cape and start taking over the duties of the police forces in there. So of course he did speak a little bit about it. Let's just take a listen as to what he said.
All right, we're told now that the bite is in fact not ready, but if we can just read from this transcription that I have here, yeah. He says the SANDF's mandate is to protect the territorial integrity of the country. Yes. We do not deploy ourselves. Yes. We are ordered. Crime is not our domain. We try to avoid that as much as possible. What did he say about this issue that crime is not the army's domain?
He says basically the army is not trained to combat crime. It's not their domain. They're not trained to deal with civilian situations. They are trained to deal with war. They are trained to combat war. That is what they are trained to do. And he says, in fact, if anybody is calling for an army to be deployed in any area to combat crime, they need to be cognizant of the consequences that it comes with that. In fact, I'm going to quote him where he actually says, if anybody wants the army to come and combat crime, they should be prepared to have them skop and donor. And I'm guessing that means, basically to kick and ensure that law and order is preserved in that area. Yeah. And the kind of consequences that come with army deployment is that they are not trained with dealing with civilians and how to deal with large crowds. What they know to do is they are trained to shoot.
All right, let's get it straight from the horse's mouth. We do now have that soundbite.
Our mandate is clear as a South African National Defence Force, is to protect the territorial integrity of the country. However, as part of our collateral utility, we do assist other state departments, and we do not deploy ourselves. We are ordered, and then when we are ordered to do something, we will never refuse. But be that as it may, crime is not in our domain, and we'll try to avoid as much as possible to get involved in combating crimes. Because if I may repeat what I said in November, that when we come in, we scope and donor, and you don't want, in fact, ourselves to be in that situation where now we are seen to be fighting against our own people.
Okay, Slee, let's go back to one of the issues that the General also responded to, this averted coup. Before you get there, let's just listen to what the General had to say about these unsubstantiated reports.
Apparently, people were saying now we are going to respond to the articles that were there, I think 2 weeks ago or so. That is not, that's what our intention. Our intention was to interact with the media. Because as far as those articles are concerned, all what you can say or would like to say, in fact, I'll repeat what I often say in parades and in medicine, that we, as members in fact, of the National Defence Force, we are above party politics. We pay our loyalty to the Constitution of the Republic. That's all that I can say.
Right, so the General taking the opportunity to clarify a whole range of issues, and of course this comes on the back of the SANDF, in fact pulling out of the Northwest province.
Most definitely, we saw how the SANDF was called on to come and avert a crisis that was going on in that province, where we saw unrest, we saw violence, we saw violent protests, and many buildings being burned. The community was angry, as they did want the former Premier Super Mahumapelo to resign, which did happen. Now we do have a bite, and the General has some good news for those citizens.
As we are aware that we've been helping the health department in the Northwest, and I'm proud to say mission accomplished. We'll be pulling out of the Northwest with immediate effect, but however we'll continue to assist the people there in terms of water and sanitation. As you are aware that we've been also helping the Ditsobota municipality with water and sanitation.
So, Silindelo, before we let you go, the General giving a wide-ranging press briefing there, and as you were telling me off air, it's going to become a regular type of briefing. There's another one scheduled before we close off the year.
Most definitely, the Army has made a commitment, the Defence Force has made a commitment to ensure that they keep the public abreast about the kind of issues that they're dealing with. You know, in this kind of briefing, we really saw the General touching on a wide-ranging issues, whether on where they are deployed, and on how they're doing on the borders. He really did mention how they've got some budgetary constraints, and following the deployment to the Northwest, they are now seeking to get payment for that deployment. They're saying that the bottom line doesn't look good, and you know, they can't really do things for free, so they're going to ensure that they can kind of get that payment back from that deployment in the Northwest. We also saw the General touching a lot on the issues, especially media reports around what's happening within the SANDF. The General confirming that they are training soldiers in Cuba. We saw some reports about arms being about the military trying to smuggle arms into Cuba. He says that's not true. Those kind of arms were actually going to be used to train the soldiers that are in Cuba at the moment. And we're going to see a lot of these kind of press briefings, and we're expecting one at the end of the year, where we'll get an update as to how the Army has done throughout the year.